Hello, I'm Bruce Brown, and I realized a couple of days ago that it's now 16 months since I was first diagnosed with ADHD. And I thought maybe because since I made a video right after I was diagnosed, maybe I'd report in to, let people know what it has been like for me. Because it's different for everybody. I've certainly learned that in the last year, a little more than a year. So here's what's been going on for me. After my diagnosis, I started with medication, and it took a little while. I mean, not a long time, but a week or two to sort of figure out what seemed to be right for the amount of the medication, and then I adjusted a couple of times, and now for about a year I've been on the same dosage, and that's fine. It has, in many ways, my knowing about, which has helped a lot, and working with and trying to take advantage of, my ADHD when that made sense, when it makes sense, and trying to learn a little bit, trying to not let myself be too impulsive, which I have been my whole life, and trying not to be too, to run off at the mouth too much, although I catch myself doing that I found myself doing it earlier this afternoon. But anyway, life has gotten better. I mean, I was very fortunate before, and I will always be grateful how I was able to go almost 70 years with ADHD, and I'm very grateful. A lot of really great stuff happened, but I did a lot of dumb stuff too. Made a lot of mistakes, and in some senses was very unhappy. And now I'm a lot happier. Now, I don't want to paint a picture that, now everything is just roses and it's wonderful and everything is now in Technicolor, because that's not true. I have challenges. There are things I want to do that I haven't been able to do. There are things I plan that I hope I'm going to be able to do, and the things that I still mess up. So it's not like all of a sudden I got bopped by a magic wand and everything is now just roses. But life is better. We've stabilized the medication. I stabilized what I eat, my diet. I read early on, because I always read a whole lot about, especially medical stuff and medication I'm going to take. Well, I read early on that Adderall, which is what I take, works better. Oops, I wasn't going to mention that, but I did, so whatever. That Adderall works better when you have protein in your system. So I figured, I needed to have protein in my system all the time, which meant I was eating a lot. It's only recently, the last month and a half or so, that I finally kind of gotten control of that. I was the only one I'd ever heard of who gained weight taking amphetamines. It's like, what? It's usually just the other way, right? But so I did. I gained weight. I was trying to have protein. I wanted to have a balanced diet, so I was eating more of other stuff too. And I didn't gain huge amounts, but I gained about 15 pounds over a period of a little more than a year. And I wasn't happy about that. Clothes weren't fitting as well. There's a sense of pride too, because I know that's not healthy for me. So now I've got that under control. I'm really happy to say, I'm grateful to say I've been able to, and I get my weight down within my healthy weight range, which is a good thing. I've stabilized sleeping. Now, that's another little journey I went on, because I've never been much of a sleeper. Most of my life, I probably have averaged 4.5 to 5 hours. Since I was in high school. And it was probably even less when I was in college. So I thought, I always read, you hear all the time, well, you got to get 8 hours sleep or 7, 8 hours sleep or something like that. So I really worked at it, and I was getting concerned because whenever I talk to anybody medical about my ADHD, they say, well, how's your sleeping? How's that going? Does it interfere with it? Are you okay? You get enough sleep? And I was beginning to get a little bit stressed about that. And for about 8 months, I'd say, I really worked hard and felt bad I wasn't getting enough sleep by their definition. Finally, about 8 months ago, I said, this is silly. This is counterproductive, because I've lived on 5 to 6 hours, maybe let's say 4.5 to 6 hours of sleep, as long as I can really remember. So why fight that and get myself all stressed about it? Because I know stress isn't good for you, and it's certainly not good for me. So I let that go. So I stabilize medication, stabilize the food that I eat, stabilize sleep. I'm comfortable with all that. Stabilize my work. I'm a workaholic, always have been. I'm fortunate that I work for myself with my wife, so we work together for each other, really, I guess. But I'm able to choose the things that I want to work on, and so I just, sometimes it's hard to step away because it's not like I'm going to stop working and begin a hobby, because the line for me between interests and work isn't always all that great. Although variety is good, and that's why I have several different things that I work on, or subject matters that I work with. So, but I've gotten along with that. I mean, I've figured out how to balance the amount of time that I spend working. My wife and I have worked together on this. I mean, it's certainly very fair to say that my wife, Marge, has been a real part of my easing into and becoming comfortable with and becoming a happier person with my adult ADHD. Doing it alone, well, I don't even want to think about it. I mean, I imagine it's probably possible, but for me, it wasn't, I didn't have to, and I'm glad I didn't. So again, one more thing to be grateful for me. So stabilize the work. Pretty much, I'm doing several things now. I'm actually doing a couple more things than I did last year when I was doing two things, working on sort of two jobs, writing for two websites. And now I've picked up a couple of other things that I'm doing, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm having, frankly, I'm having a blast. And again, I feel lucky about that. My relationship with Marge has gone to another level now that I have ADHD. In the beginning, we spent a lot of time talking about it and reading about it, and talking to other people and listening to, watching videos and listening to podcasts and stuff about it, trying to learn everything we could. And I know I had mixed feelings along the way. I know Marge did, and we had to sort of think, okay, well, who are you any different than you really were? And I'm not. I'm really the same guy, but I don't become a jerk quite as quickly and as easily as I used to become a jerk, because now it's like sort of sunk in that I don't have to decide everything spur of the moment. That isn't necessarily a virtue, because it got us into trouble financially in some cases in the past, and sometimes there were things that just didn't make, in retrospect or looking a little objectively a little further out, I was like, wait, in the context of why did I ever do that? Well, I'm happy to report that there's less of that. I'm not going to say there's none of it, and I don't know that there ever will be. But it's a journey. It's a path. It's something I'm shooting for. I'm working on, and it's progress. I'll go for progress, not perfection, and I'm okay with that. I've been very open about my ADHD. I put it on social media. I've mentioned it at networking meetings. My whole family knows. And I don't have any, well, I'm pretty much of an open book anyway, but that's kind of who I've always been. But also with ADHD, I sort of feel like, realizing that maybe I'm a high functioning ADHD person and it's different for everyone, and some people, the symptoms are much, much tougher to cope with than mine were, and to some extent still are. But, I talk about it, and I find that when I'm talking to people that you kind of get the idea maybe they might have some of this stuff going on. I mean, I'm not like saying, oh, wait, you have ADHD, or did you ever think you might have ADHD, son? But if the conversation gets around to the fact that I have ADHD, says, yeah, well, I kind of do that stuff, and they'll say, what? And I find it's pretty common. And again, it's a spectrum. Some people it just a little annoys them a little bit, or puts them out of sync a little bit with a lot of other people. And there are other people who just feel very isolated, and that's really tragic. But when I talk to people, if it comes up directly or indirectly, I don't hesitate to talk about. Don't see that or feel that I'm running around preaching about it, but I'm happy to talk with people about it, because I think it's important. I never knew. I wish I had known. I wish I had known in middle school. But okay, so I didn't know then. But man, I wish I had known, in high school or in college or in my 20s. It would have been great to know that I had ADHD, and it was something, and it really two things: that I had it, so I'd understand some things about why I did some stuff, but also that there was a way to help with it medically. So so that's me. I'm Bruce Brown. I have ADHD. I usually try not to say adult. I think I started this video saying I have adult ADHD, probably out of habit with videos, right? But I don't discriminate or differentiate between childhood ADHD and adult ADHD. I think it's all the same thing. I think that when I was a child, I didn't have it. It wasn't very noticeable. They didn't. Well, actually, when I was a child, they didn't know about it, and then shortly after that, when they did begin to know about it, they thought that only kids had it. But I had issues that appear to be related to my ADHD, and I've talked about that before. Getting labeled and buying into the label of being an underachiever and feeling bad about that, but not seeming to be able to break out of it, not being able to do homework. Great in class, horrible at studying it alone at home, particularly things that were all boring. So I've learned a lot about it. I'm really grateful that things are getting better, and this may sound really weird, but I'm grateful that I have ADHD, and particularly now that I understand more about it. So I'm Bruce Brown. As I've said 3 times now, I have ADHD, and I'm okay with that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and watch.